Remember Mike Posner? What happened to him? I just wanted to like scream. I'm here. I'm right here.
Please welcome Mike Posner to perform his #1 hit, I Took a Pill in Ibiza.
And I'm walking across America. Has a fascinating take on what many consider to be the dream life.
Everybody give it up for Mike Posner.
10 years since writing I Took a Pill in Ibiza.
That's a strong statement.
You get an offer from Jay-Z. What did you do with it?
And I was working with Benny Blanco. Cool, go on Jay Leno, go on Jimmy Fallon, go do it. And I'm like, well, my career dried up, man. I was on the verge of dying. He said, why don't you just tell the truth?
I took a pill in Ibiza.
So excited because today I get to chat with one of the people I've been listening to for years in music and now in inspiration. Welcome back to Behind the Wall because we have the one and only Mike Posner.
Thank you. Go me, go me.
Mike, I have to be honest here. When I first started this series, one of my goals was to shine a light on the people and stories behind music. And more recently, I've been really thinking about what the mission of this series is. And it's kind of become more into inspire every underdog to go for it. And your mission and everything that you've done from this point has really fit that mission really well. So I'm really excited to talk to you about your story. You put out this really incredible post recently, 10 years since writing I Took a Pill in Ibiza. And I'm so excited to go over that. But in order to get to that, where I'd love to start is towards the beginning of your story. Is it true that you started out as a freestyle rapper?
Yeah, 100%.
How did that begin?
I had a few older cousins that were MCs. My cousin Tulsi's an underground MC in Seattle. My cousin Eli was an underground rapper in Atlanta, and they were older than me. I looked up to them. And so that was sort of in my realm of experience. And then I remember my best friend Ronnie at the time invited me over to spend the night. We had a sleepover. We were in his basement, and Ronnie always had a scheme, something we were going to get into. And that night it was freestyling, and we put on some beats, like CDs we found that didn't have words on them, and just tried to let stream of consciousness raps like fall out of our mind and mouths, and something just clicked inside me, and I knew I would never stop doing that for the rest of my life.
But there was a bit of a shift because I guess one of my questions is, for freestyle rapping, how did that impact your songwriting? And how did you go from being a freestyle rapper to then starting to sing?
Well, it helps my songwriting to this day, because a lot of songwriting starts off with freestyling. Like you think about the genesis of any songwriting session, it begins with you just channeling something. Sometimes that's a melody, so the freestyle might take a little bit different form, but by definition, songwriting is writing something that didn't exist before. True. So it's freestyling in its own way. And so, to get ideas going, often freestyle, to this day. And the second part of your question was when did I start singing? That was about 12 years later.
Wow.
So I started rapping when I was 8. I made a hip-hop album when I was in high school, and sold it out of the trunk of my car. And then I went to college, and I think the difference in weather, I grew up in Detroit. It's very cold and gray, kind of like it is today. And then I went to college in North Carolina, and it was warmer, and I just started experimenting. Like, what would happen if I sang my raps? And what if I sang with the same sort of complexity in the rhyme scheme that I very much appreciate as a rapper? Like, what if I brought that but added melody to it? And so I just started playing in my dorm room, and that's how I started singing.
It seems like an artist who had a profound impact on you during that time was Big Sean. What was that relationship like with him? How did you meet him? And what did you learn from him then going to college?
Well, I learned a lot from Sean, and definitely wouldn't be here without him. Sean is the same age as me. We're both from Detroit. And I met him when I was 18. And he had already met Kanye. He wasn't signed yet, but he had met Kanye. And he and Kanye were sort of courting one another to see if maybe Kanye was going to sign him. So he was like this connection to glory that didn't exist anywhere else. You know, every other person I knew in my life was sort of caught in the molasses of suburban mediocrity. And here was this guy that knew Kanye West, like a direct line to something else that wasn't a part of my or anybody I knew's experience of life. When I started singing, Sean gave me 3 verses for the mixtape that I made. And that helped my career get started, helped people listen to me. And so the first way Sean changed my life was he just like eventually got a record deal. And
Showed you it was possible.
He showed me it was possible, and it shifted something internally for me. You know, I believed that thoughts repeated over time turn into beliefs. Beliefs repeated over time turn into actions. Actions repeated over time turn into habits, and habits repeated over time turn into your life. Mm-hmm. So he shifted my thinking, which shifted my beliefs, which was before Sean, pre-Sean, my belief was, yeah, it'd be great to like make a living doing music, but that's pretty much impossible. Post Sean, that belief was, dude, if he can do it, I can definitely do it. Cause I freestyle with him all the time. Our skill level is comparable. Like if he can, yeah, like why can't I do it? And once that internal shift happened inside me, reality caught up about 8 months later. And I was sitting across from Jay-Z and got offered a record deal.
By Jay-Z?
Yeah, Jay-Z and other labels as well. Yeah.
Tell me about meeting Jay-Z. What was that like?
That was a trip. I was a junior in college. And my music had already started to catch on in the college scene.
And this was Cooler Than Me?
I made a mixtape called A Matter of Time, and the original version of Cooler Than Me was one of the songs on it. But it wasn't... Cooler Than Me later became like a worldwide hit. It wasn't that yet, but the song existed, and it was sort of not just that song, that mixtape was like sort of a underground like thing on college campuses across the US. So I would go to different colleges, play like a show for, anywhere from 50 to 300 people, and they would know all the words. It was just a trip, right? It was a trip. And record labels started to take note of what was happening. And then I started to get like flown to New York and LA to do meetings. And I was like going to school, and I got a call from my manager, and he's like, hey, you got to go back to New York. Jay-Z wants to meet you. And I'm like, I just came from New York. And I'm like, also don't fuck with me. And he's like, I'm not fucking with you. He really wants to meet you. And I didn't believe it was real. Like I thought I would go and then get passed off to somebody else, So I didn't tell anybody, and I flew up there and had just like a 2-hour meeting with Jay-Z, and then flew home, back to college. Was in the library writing a paper for a sociology course. And then in a moment of procrastination, checked my email and saw there was a offer there from Rock Nation,
Wow.
and found it quite hard to finish that paper.
Definitely.
After, yeah.
So you get an offer from Jay-Z. How did that feel, and what did you do with it?
It felt exciting. I didn't sign it. I signed with a different record label. And you asked what I did with it. I just worked hard. You know, I very much felt like it was the beginning. I still feel like it's the beginning. And like my best music was still inside of me. So it wasn't a symbol of something being done, but something being started.
So you start singing. How long after you start singing did you make Cooler Than Me?
Within a year.
How did you write Cooler Than Me, and where did that song come from at the time?
I was in college at Duke University, and I was dating a woman, and I was frustrated about something. Like we had a plan or something, and it wasn't really about the woman I was dating. It was sort of like an amalgamation of all my frustrations with the opposite sex that I had amassed up until that point in my life, and I just wrote the song from this sort of like hurt, I guess, emotional space. But I remember there was a computer lab down the hall from me, and opening up a Word document, and I remember just filling up a page, and there was too many rhymes. Like I can still remember rhymes and lines for that song that didn't make it in. Like there was too many.
Like what?
There's always good. I mean, I almost blush to say because there's like things I wouldn't write now.
Got it.
But that's always a good sign to me. When like there's too many ideas for the verse. Like we have to pick two of these, and they're all good. Let's just like pick the best ones. Like that's always a good sign.
What stood out a lot about that song was you didn't really hear a lot of people who focus so much on lyrics in a lot of these pop electronic, like these kind of songs. You got Designer Shades just to hide your face in. And then you start singing, and you're singing it, and it's also catchy. The beat's also great. Song really connects with people. How long does it take until it becomes a hit?
Years. Yeah, it took years. Like I said, I became kind of a college underground sensation, and I was like the man inside of that world, and I was in college, so it was pretty surreal, like, you know, to go to another campus and everyone knows who you are, and I sort of felt like I made it, you know?
For sure.
And I had this record deal, but I was like, man, like, how much cooler can it get? You know, this is awesome. And I was working on my debut album. I had done 2 mixtapes before. I was working with Benny Blanco and some other people, and we did the song "Please Don't Go."
Yeah, love that song.
I thought, like, you know, "Please Don't Go" should be my single. Like, it's with Benny Blanco. He's a big deal.
Yeah.
And my same manager, Dan Weissman, who I'm still close with to this day, said, "Cooler Than Me is your first single." I said, "What are you talking about? Cooler Than Me's been out for 2 years plus. Everybody's heard Cooler Than Me already." And I'll never forget, he looked at me in New York City and he said, Nobody has heard Cooler Than Me." And I was like, man, I guess I just like need to expand my thinking around this, you know? And so we hired a man named Ian C., who's an independent radio promoter, because the record label didn't really believe in that song either, because it was also old to them. They'd heard it for 2 years.
For sure.
And so we just hired this guy, paid, I think, $10,000 or something like that to have him get it onto radio stations, because he had relationships to do so. And they was called Spiked It. That means play it the first time. He got it spiked on, I don't know, 5 stations. and they do some kind of testing or whatever they do, and I guess it did really well. And there was one station, Patty Moreno, in Sacramento. They start playing like 50 times a week, which is a lot. And it was before Spotify had taken hold, and
50 times a week is a ton, especially for radio.
it had taken hold before streaming had really taken hold in the US. And so that was like how new songs broke, was the radio. And so it just started to go crazy there. And then the record label was like, damn, Clear to Me is your first single for sure. And they got it on the other stations, and it became like a big thing. Yeah.
Huge song, Cooler Than Me. I also am the biggest fan of Please Don't Go. I saw a video of you producing it. One of my favorite videos ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Ever. That's a strong statement.
I was
kid.
watching it last night. I hadn't seen someone create. Also, like, the video is created in a way that shows you the entire process. Also a big fan of Benny. Seeing the synth and everything like come together in real time, like seeing those behind the scenes, one of my favorite things. Please Don't Go gets created. How did you write and make that song?
It was my first time doing a real studio session. I'd done a lot of collaboration with people in my basement, but this was the first time I went to like a real studio, downtown studios in New York, and I was working with Benny Blanco.
Yeah.
Who I had been speaking with for months and months and months from my dorm room. And so it was an incredible experience. I learned so much from Benny. He taught me how to collaborate. I can be very type A. Like, I like to get shit done. And he taught me how to chill out, and he taught me how to create a safe space for an artist, which, sometimes I do now in the producer role. But he did that for me. And so he taught me how to just let the song come and it'll all get done. And we just had a ton of fun. Like, we kicked it. I remember I had, before that, only recorded my own vocals. And so we kicked the engineer out, and I brought the mic next to Benny, and he recorded me in the control room. We had the candles lit. We're just like two Jewish dudes in their early 20s that love hip hop and are interested in making pop music and have been making beats since we're little kids and rapping, and we're just interested in bringing our kind of flavor to popular music. And, he had all these codes from Dr. Luke and Max Martin and all these people he'd worked with. And so I learned all about all that stuff and transitions and pre-choruses and, it's everything. It's like soak up from anybody you work with, soak up what you don't know. And, and then like you bust out hard drives at the end and trade drum samples because it's before Splice and everything. Yeah. So it's just awesome. It's an awesome experience. And, what's more important to me than even that song, I mean, by a long shot, is my friendship with Benny.
For sure.
Which is, the song is awesome and it exists. It'll exist forever. But, I got one of my dear friends, from that.
Amazing.
From that song. So, I think in pop music, we think a lot about, I would say we, like the scene thinks a lot about extracting music out of people. And I think about extracting people out of music.
Interesting.
I think about the relationship that'll get born in the song and how that can impact people for the better.
Please Don't Go recently had a huge comeback on TikTok. People were doing all these different like trends to it with like scarves and driving in the car and everything like that. I saw that it had a new life. People are really connecting with it again. But I wanted to ask you, do you know what your most like viral song on TikTok is? Do you know what that is?
I thought it was that one because it had that trend.
There's one that's actually higher.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me.
It's a dance remix of Bow Chicka Wow Wow.
What?
Yes, way higher actually. So Please Don't Go has 526K videos. This version has 3.1 mil.
What?
Yeah. I'd love to show it to you after so you can see
Sure.
that trend. So you
So
have
crazy.
So you have Cooler Than Me, Please Don't Go, Bow Chicka Wow Wow with Lil Wayne. And you have hit after hit after hit. One of those videos that really connected with me, especially back in the day, was your Draw My Life video. And hearing your story on that.
Yeah, I got to do a new one of those.
Oh, 100%. I think the world would love that,
Yeah.
especially your community. But you had this goal of putting out an album called Pages.
Yeah.
What happened?
I still have that goal. By the way, could you write down, let's do a Draw My Life video. Yeah, we got to do a new one of those. Thank you. My career dried up, man. You know, I came out with a giant bang. My first single was this song, Cooler Than Me, that we discussed. And, you know, I thought, like, that's just what happens when I put out singles. You know, they're all fucking huge. And the second single was Please Don't Go. And it sounds silly now, even to myself, because the song did so well, Please Don't Go. It sold millions of copies, and you know, like, it has this whole new life on TikTok. But actually, the experience then was Please Don't Go as a failure.
Really?
Because it wasn't as big as Cooler Than Me. Its sales dwarfed in comparison to Cooler Than Me. So it was like a failure to the label, to everyone. And after that was Bow Chicka Wow Wow, and the sales of Bow Chicka Wow Wow, same story. Also a platinum song, Lil Wayne, but not as big as Please Don't Go. And so also really felt like a failure, and was deemed a failure by the label, and felt like one to me. And you know, this is like a deeper life lesson of, you know, not comparing the present to the past and letting each experience be its own. Because those songs were not failures. They sold million. Like, I have platinum plaques on my wall of those songs, but they felt like failures at the time. And so that's kind of a trip. And my understanding is the record label was just sort of looking at, like, the line going down, and now it's time for Mike Posner to make a new album, and I do so. And now I'm working with a lot of great producers, not just Benny, but Pharrell, and I work with J. Cole, and I work with 2 Chainz, and I work with Justin Bieber.
Incredible
you know, I
people.
have this like huge, epic Big Sean and Diplo and Benny. Like, you know, okay, these are all great people. They all cost a lot of money, right? So the label, now it's time for me to put the album out, and the label's got to, like, pay all these people. You know, it's probably $500,000 just to pay the producers. That's not even the marketing. And my understanding is it didn't make sense for them. They weren't sure that if they spent all that money, the music would make that much money back and turn a profit. And so the decision was to kind of make no decision and just let Mike keep making music. But if anything, like, kind of takes off on its own, or leaks, and raises its hand, or if he plays something really incredible, we'll put it out, but we'll just kind of like keep him over here and not release his music. There's one word for this in the music industry. It's called getting shelved. I got shelved. So they put me on a shelf and left me.
Which means you can't, you really can't release music in a way.
Correct, because they own all that music. I'm under contract. So, you know, after like a few years of this, I worked really hard to try to get off this label, and so I could, you know, just be free and then make new music and put it out. That took a while because I wasn't the priority for their legal team for sure. But I eventually did. But that music I made before I got out of my contract remains to be owned by that label. So we're actually very close to getting it released now.
Wow.
I mean, we've been working on this for years. And it's not Sony anymore. They've like actually been really cool about now moving it to a different label on
That's
Sony.
incredible.
And the one holdup is like there's all these features. And so we have to get all the features cleared. And sometimes it's taken so long that I'll get it cleared, and then, you know, there's one artist featured on my album, and I got him cleared, and then his deal ended, and he signed a new deal. So I have to re-clear him with the new label, and they're kind of being difficult about it. So there's like one last thing to clear up, but it's very close.
So during this time of getting shelved, you start writing and producing for others, and that kind of becomes your calling in a sense.
Yeah, I don't know if it was one of my callings.
One of your callings.
I had all these songs that were on this unreleasable album, but the songs were releasable if I didn't sing them. So, you know, I have this label kind of like, you know, just putting me in a holding pattern. And I would hear from other artists or other labels that would hear the songs and go like, you know, big artists, like, you know, like, I would die to sing this song, or like, this would be my next single if you give it to me. And so I'm kind of like, hey, yeah, this could either just stay on my laptop forever, or I can let these other artists do an interpretation of the song, and it can go out into the world. And so I did that, and that's how Justin Bieber's Boyfriend came to be. And
With Black Bear.
yeah, Black Bear and I wrote that song with MDL, and then Justin put his spin on it, so Justin wrote on it as well. And then Sugar from Maroon 5.
One of the songs that was specifically from Pages, right?
Both of them, yeah.
Both of those songs are supposed to be on Pages.
Yeah, they were on Pages.
They
yeah.
were on Pages.
Yeah.
Wow. Were they different before? Like Maroon 5 Sugar, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Was your version very different from theirs?
That one's pretty close, except for the bridge. The bridge, I said, you got that red velvet, you got that sugar sweet. Don't let nobody touch it unless that somebody's me. You say you got a man, I gotta find a way. You about to make me go back to my Carolina days. Hair lined up, stars is too. First date drove that Impala too. I still got that Impala too. Button up with the collar too. Woo! Now you know that I'm serious. And when you going, I'm furious. Yeah. And you ain't on that shy shit, no makeup phone. That's my sugar. So there's some lines in there about like my
That's
past,
amazing.
Carolina.
Yeah.
You know, that's where I went to school, and I drove an Impala. So Adam obviously changed all those lines, and as he should have. You know, the rest of it is pretty. I think like, you know, the main juxtaposition is the same. He does cooler runs than me.
Yeah, he's a good singer.
Yeah.
So are you, though.
Thank you.
I've noticed that there's been a bunch of confidence building in your voice. How did you... Because you start singing, and then you get better and better at singing. How do you practice singing, and how did you get better at it?
I worked really hard at it, and part of it was the failure. You know, we talked about this time of getting shelved.
Yeah.
So, you know, I went from parading around the world, ripping my shirt off at shows and crowd surfing, the whole thing, to now my calendar's empty. And I go, what do I do now? And it was a real moment in my life, because I had built an identity around being a popular artist, and I was no longer a popular artist. And so what's my identity? Well, I had to sit in that house alone and go, okay, even though I'm not successful right now externally, I still very much love to make music. So maybe I can use this time to get better at that. And so this was like, I didn't play any instruments.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like piano.
No, I didn't. I mean, like this, like,
Okay, got it.
you know, and I didn't know how to sing, you know, like we talked about. I was making this, and when I record the songs in my dorm room, I would just sing one line over and over until I got it, and then I'd move to the next line. I'd never even sung my whole song through, and then my stuff blew up. And so I didn't know what I was doing. You know, they're like, cool, go on Jay Leno, go on Jimmy Fallon, go do it. And I'm like, well, and I would never bomb, but I would never like crush it. And so I was like, you know, I want to crush it. And so I hired a vocal coach, Dave Stroud, and I just worked my ass off on it, man, like every day. I would go see him once a week. We'd record the lesson. I'd repeat it every day. And then I started taking piano lessons from Norman Henry Mamie. And that was like, started off 20 minutes a day, flash cut 4 months later, like I'm on that piano 4 months a day, like having to take a break because I'm injuring my wrist from playing so much. And then I started taking guitar lessons from Jean-Marc. And now I'm able to play a show alone. And not just like play a show, but play incredible shows, you know, that are deep and meaningful and transcendent to me and hopefully the audience too. And there's a lot of pride that happens with that. Like I remember playing Red Rocks and I opened up for Black Bear.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, so there's a crowd there to see a big production. And I walked out with a guitar and just fucking crushed it. And there's a lot of pride that goes with that because I learned that all as an adult. So just and people started saying this weird thing to me, which is you're talented. No one ever said that to me before. They'd say like your beats are dope, or like I like your song. Like they would be a fan of the production I'd made, but no one ever said I was talented. My whole life, no one ever said you're talented until I started playing instruments.
Interesting.
And then I've realized. I'm not talented. I just worked hard. You know, I'm skilled.
Yeah.
I'm skilled. And so I think talent is pretty much bullshit. You know, you have people that put in more work earlier in their lives, you know, and so they appear talented, but they're skilled.
For sure. You took on a lot of new skills, and I think a lot of people are not as likely to take those things on. One of the towards the later part of your career, moving on a bit, I remember when you were about to drop At Night Alone. I remember I was a freshman in college and I was super excited for this EP, and I remember listening to it, and two songs stood out the most. One of them was Iris. The other, of course, is I Took a Pill in Ibiza. And I remember listening to that song, and the lyrics really connected with me, and I remember sharing them with a friend who was going through addiction, and then it really helped him as well. Take me back to that song and what it was like writing that song at the time, because it seems like there was a shift of your songwriting from like Cooler Than Me, Please Don't Go, and then that song.
Yeah, I mean, it was 6 years, you know, I made 2-3 albums that got shelved that were in between. So that's why it feels like there's a big gap, because there is. And the whole time I'm just growing and I'm going through the things that I'm telling you about. And I start to get really fascinated with just beautiful songwriters, going back to Woody Guthrie, and you follow the lineage down to Dylan, and you follow that down to Springsteen, and you follow that to, you know, like Conor Oberst and Taylor Goldsmith, who I got really into. And I was just inspired by things that were not in LA, you know. There's a line on one one of the early Dylan albums. I can't remember what it was. He goes, most songs nowadays are made in like Tin Pan Alley in New York City, but these songs were made in the United States of America. And I kind of felt the same way. It's like most songs these days are made in West Hollywood, California, but these songs are written in the United States of America. And so I just started studying and listening, and I was like obsessed, And I was in the studio with Jake Owen. You probably heard me tell this story since you're so well researched, but we're at Nightbird Studios, and he's playing me a song on the guitar, and then he passes me the guitar, and I play him a song, and he says to me, what's that about? And I said, it's about like different women in my past, and I mushed their stories together, and then some of it I just made up. And he had this look come over his face like he was trying to decide whether to tell me something or not, something that might upset me. And then he said, oh, well, why don't you just tell the truth? And it was as if my whole life was revealed back to me in a new way. That things were actually not going the way I wanted them to. I was smiling a lot and walking around, but underneath there was a deep sadness and a grief, from logging on to social media every night and reading remember Mike Posner? What happened to him? And I just wanted to scream. I'm here. I'm right fucking here. But even if I did, no one would have heard it because I was just alone in my house. And so that night, Jake's question was just haunting me. Why don't you just tell the truth? And I just looked at my life and told the truth. And that was I took a pill in Ibiza.
You put out this post recently about how 26-year-old Mike versus 36-year-old Mike. Tell me about the differences between them and the lyrics back then versus how they relate to your life now.
You want me to do it line by line like the thing?
We can.
Whatever you want.
Sure.
So the first line of the song is, I took a pill in Ibiza to show Avicii I was cool. And so that's me at 26. And now I'm like the pillar of health. The thought of me taking a pill from a stranger that I don't know what it is so ridiculous. It would just never happen because I love myself. And I love this body that I've been given by God. This body is a miracle. Our bodies are all miracles. They have wisdom inside them. They know how to beat my heart, grows my hair without me trying. I mean, it's the more you study about the human body, the more it literally is a miracle. So I would never just hurt my body or myself to try to get attention from others. So that's a pretty big difference. And I don't know if we need to go line by line, but it kind of seems exhausting to do that right now. But I think most markedly, it was just my life was about, when I was 26, was about getting liked by other people, and as many of them as I could. My work was about me getting significance. It was all a manipulation of my audience to make me feel better because I didn't love myself. I didn't respect myself. And, a lot happened in these 10 years. We could talk about it, but now work is someplace I go to contribute and serve, and if we make a difference for other people. And am deeply proud of the man I've become.
Incredible. It seems like back in the day, you talked about in that Draw My Life video that some of your main driving factors were fame, money, success. What would you say those 3 factors are to you now that keep you driving, keep you going?
Viktor Frankl's got a great, it's not a quote. I kind of like boil it down. But if you read his book, Man's Search for Meaning, have you ever read that book?
I haven't, but I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah, you should read it, man. Anyone should read it. It's a must-read human book. Because it talks about the importance of having a purpose. And like that's a word that gets thrown around a lot, purpose, whatever. But like knowing your individual purpose is foundational to any sort of health and living a good life. And so I see, hear, feel, and know my purpose is to be a leader who unlocks the magic potential in myself and many others. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
It informs what I do. I have a lot of different projects underneath that, that could take the form of music or books or making a dinner for someone or whatever. But that's why I'm here. And so I'm clear on that. And when, challenges come up, and they do, I go back to that. And there's still, of course, like I have an ego like anyone else. Those things are still there, but they're not in the driver's seat anymore. They're like in an appropriate place, which is in the back seat or the trunk. They're on the ride, not steering the car.
I feel like there's a big reset on your life as a pop star, or even as just like an artist, someone who makes art, when you decide to take a pause on everything and go on a huge journey of walking across America. Mm-hmm. I know you've talked about it a lot, but I'd love to hear something that journey you learned from it, that you took away from it, and that other people, like that you want to inspire other people, like with this journey you went on.
I wasn't trying to inspire other people. I was just trying to save my own life. I was on the verge of dying, not the way that Avicii had just died, or Mac Miller had just died, or my dad had just died, or Ronnie, who I talked about earlier, had just died. I wasn't on the verge of dying like them. I was on the verge of dying a much sadder death, which is the kind of death where you're still walking around spewing hot air out of your mouth, but your dreams have turned into a rotten corpse of resentment. And so I had a dream, which was to walk across the U.S. I had it already for 5 years. But it was something I was putting off till later. I was going to get around to it. And what I realized was every day I wasn't doing it, I was dying. And it just became very clear, like I was either going to do that walk this year or I was going to live a life of lies. And I told my manager and my team, and they said, this is like a career-ending idea. This is a crazy idea. And I learned something from that, which is not all crazy ideas are great, but all great ideas are crazy.
It's one of the best lines I think I've heard.
I was filled up with doubt and fear, before I walked across America, I had to drive across because strategically I wanted to start on the East Coast. So you can imagine driving across at 70 miles per hour and just like,
I'm going to walk this.
Like this just keeps going.
Yeah.
And every minute we drove longer, I got more scared. Scared that I was really going to ruin my career. Scared that I was really going to hurt my body seriously, permanently.
Yeah.
And scared that I might actually just fail in front of everyone. And, this is like the secret ingredient to any worthwhile goal.
Okay.
Is the risk of absolute unequivocal failure. Like that is where the juice is. If that's not a part of your goal, it's probably not big enough of a goal. And so I just stood off the coast of New Jersey, You know, I picked Asbury Park. I was looking for a town on the eastern seaboard where I could get in the water, and had read Springsteen's book, and that's Asbury Park's as good as any. So I went there and had played a show at the Stone Pony years ago, and walked past the Stone Pony and went into the water alone. And the waves of the Atlantic Ocean washed over me, and then with all of the fear of what might happen, all this doubt, uncertainty of if I'm going to hurt myself and ruin my career, blah, 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 is circling in my head. I take a step, and all the fears about what might happen if I choose to do this disappear because I'm doing it. And so then I learned also step one is take one step.
And then take another.
Yeah. Then keep going.
Yeah, I love it. And then later on, you put out a video that really connected. In one of the songs, you said a line that I might climb Everest, you never know.
Yeah.
And you said in the video that it was kind of just like a one-off joke at the time. Mm-hmm. How did that turn into a reality?
You gotta be careful what you write. You know, I saw something online of Snoop Dogg talking about this as well. And he said, you know, his album was called The Dogfather. It was about life, and he's alive. And yeah, Biggie's album same year was Life After Death, and the first album was Ready to Die, and he died. And Tupac had I don't remember which Tupac album it was, but there was another death-themed album, and he passed. So I really believe you got to be careful what you write, and yeah, I've experienced that a lot, man. Even the first mixtape I made that we talked about earlier, A Matter of Time, I'm in my dorm room like a loner loser kid, like who's making beats while everyone else is out partying. And I'm writing the album, the mixtape, from the perspective that it's out and it's a success. I'm talking about the girl problems I have now. I'm talking about, I don't have any girls. I'm talking about all this stuff. I'm writing what my life is going to be like. And then my life became that. And so, yeah, I had this line in a song. I might do Everest, you never know. Change is like a metronome. I got an old soul, Fender Rhodes. 2 lifetimes worth of ideas in my Evernote. And it was just fun. And then as I walked across America, like, that idea popped in my head. Like, yeah, I could climb Everest, but it wasn't. It's hard to explain when you take something so ridiculous and make it real, and you overcome insane adversity every day and overcome unthinkable physical pain and sweltering heat and floods, and you just go anyways, every day, what that does to your psyche. It's not a subtle thing. And so now these things that seem like jokes have manifested themselves on the menu of life as something you are now able to order. There's some pages of the menu of life you can't look at until you complete the journey on the page you're on. And so I was looking at a whole new page going, Everest will be fucking hard. Like the hardest. I'm walking across America. It's going to be 10 times harder than this. I've never held an ice axe. I've never climbed a mountain. I've never worn crampons. But I know how to do hard shit now. I do it every day. So why can't I do that? And yeah, I guess the seed was already there without me even realizing it. But then it was the doing hard shit every day that made it like, this is something I can now order.
From the menu of life.
Correct.
Which,
by the way, I don't know if it's okay if I just ramble for a second. This is the appropriate way to use past accomplishments. So everyone listening to this, and you, like, you've accomplished something big in your life. Yeah. Like, what's one thing?
I recently got to live out one of my dreams of singing on stage with my favorite band, Coldplay.
What?
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome. So the appropriate way to now categorize that memory, that accomplishment in your psyche is as evidence of your power going forward. It's using the past to empower the present moment, right? So you're going to have new goals and new challenges come up, and you should remember that and go, wow, if I pulled that off, why can't this happen, right? It should motivate and give you juice. It should propel you forward. The mistake a lot of us make, I made this mistake, learned this the hard way, is we use our past accomplishments as an excuse to be stagnant. We're not propelling ourselves forward. We're going, well, I already did that, so I don't have to do anything else now, you know? Like, I'm good. I'm done. That's the wrong way to use your past accomplishments. That desecrates your accomplishments.
When you accomplish something so massive, something that really stuck out, something that you said, everyone keeps asking, like, what's next? What's next? What's next? You say, all we have is here in the moment. It really stood out. But now accomplishing this and accomplishing something that you kind of like tried to make happen my entire life, not everything you do is like exactly what you think it's going to be, because there's like so much, you have like this impression of your mind of like, oh, this is going to happen. I've been trying to make this happen for 14 years, climbing Mount Everest. I'm sure that like what you thought was going to be may be different.
Mm-hmm.
How, because there's motivation, there's something else entirely. Do you find that like you have one mission that carry on, or do you find new purposes every single time you go for something?
Explain to me what you mean.
Like, I am Mike Posner. This is my purpose in life. Everything I do is for this, or throughout life, each chapter has a different mission.
Yeah, the mission can evolve for sure. So this is go back to Frankl's book.
Yeah.
You know, is it don't ask what you expect out of life, right? A lot of us, like, we're sitting there whining, like, life didn't give me this, life didn't give me that. We ask, what? Always measuring life against our expectations of life. Frankl says, don't ask what you expect out of life. Ask, what does life expect out of me? And so, yeah, for sure that evolves over time. You know, my purpose evolves. It can evolve moment to moment, but you want kind of like a North Star you're aiming at for a while. You should be changing it every week. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking, yeah, maybe every couple years or once a year, you look at it and go, okay, and it evolves. But you want to have a purpose at all times, you know? And I think you're really wise to know that, like, you can't hold too tight onto life, you know? As much wisdom as we can espouse on these microphones, like, life is infinitely more wise than we are. And so it has a plan for you. It has a plan for me. And if life wants me to change my direction or change my purpose, it will give me the signals to do so, either in the form of rewards, or if I'm getting way off, in the form of pain. And that's it, man. You got to be able to listen to life also.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I want to say thank you so much for doing this.
Thank
being on
you,
this.
bro.
It means the world.
Thank you for your listenership, the depth at which you listen to music and to all things. And that's a gift you give to other people, to the people you interview, and I'm sure to the rest of the people in your life as well.
That means the world.
Yeah, man.
I wanted to say that I I was working a 9-to-5 job for a while. I got laid off from that. Then I got another one. Started making videos online. I started telling stories around like the behind the scenes of music and other things like that. People laughed at me, told me that it wouldn't turn into anything. Mm-hmm. Why would you even like waste your time like posting these like silly little videos, making on like an iPhone 6S, recording a laptop screen, right?
Yeah.
And I start telling all these stories, and then I revisit the Draw My Life video that you made. I see the story of Sugar, and I'm like, this is incredible. I love this so much. Why haven't I told this story yet? So I do. It's early on, hadn't made any money from content, haven't like figured out how to go full-time or anything like that. I make this video, I post it, and you comment on it, actually. This is 3 years ago.
On YouTube or Instagram?
This was TikTok.
Oh, TikTok. Okay.
3 years ago, you commented on this video. And no one, whatever I was doing, it was the first time I felt like I was leaving some sort of impact that was connecting with people and everything like that. So I wanted to say you have had a massive impact on me, not only with music, but showing me that, no, this is okay to go for. It's okay to quit. It's okay to go all out with this, having no money, no plan, and then just deciding to try. And so I printed out the comment you left.
Oh, man, you're going to make me cry, dude. This story's amazing.
And so I also have this is the comment you left.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember running downstairs. I remember showing my parents, freaking out. I was like, Mike Posner left a comment on my video. And I started freaking out.
Oh, how cool is this?
And I've held on to that ever since. Because ever since, you were the first person like that kind of gave me that push to go for it. So thank you for that. And thank you for being a part of this. I
Thank
appreciate
you. Should I read this later?
Yeah, of course.
This is, you know, I'm sure, like, I don't remember the video exactly. I kind of remember your voice now that we've met from it. Like, so I don't remember it, you know, in great detail. But seeing what I wrote, I'm sure that I felt the thing that I was alluding to earlier, that somebody heard me, you know, because you got to understand, like, when you write the song behind the scenes, as you know, like, and really, you know, it's intended for me. It's just, I'm sure I felt seen by it and understood in some way. So as much as I believe that I gave you a gift, you gave me a gift also. And this is just really cool. And I feel like this meeting today was meant to be.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining Behind the Wall. Give it up for Mike Posner. Love it.
Yay me. Awesome, man.